Comrades, we must never succumb to pressure of America. America has never helped us with anything, even during apartheid. They cannot threaten us now with sanctions. Everywhere else America goes, you must know they never go to help those people. They go to destabilize those countries. They did the same thing in Libya. They did the same thing in Iraq. They did the same thing in Afghanistan. Now they want to come to South Africa and destabilize it. We must unite against American imperialism and colonialism. We must not be intimidated by Elon Musk and everybody who stands with him. All those who are offered an opportunity to go to America because there is a genocide against them in South Africa, you are free to go. The borders are opened for racists to leave South Africa. We have no home for racists in South Africa. Our friends will never be United Kingdom. Our friends will never be France. Our friends will never be USA. They were never there for us during difficult times. It doesn't matter what Trump will do to us. We will die next to the Palestinian people. We will be buried next to the graves of the Palestinians. Comrades, our people are being killed in Sudan. Life is being lost. No one is saying anything because it's an African life. We must fight and always continue to raise the plight of the children and women of Sudan. We must no longer allow a situation where blacks kill other black people because they want riches of that country. Africans must unite everywhere and do not find it easy to kill one another during these difficult times. Our lives remain cheap. Our dignity remains undermined. And we are still disrespected by white supremacists that insist that white people must be comfortable at the expense of black people. And when white people are not comfortable, then black people must be punished with sanctions and isolation. We must ask the ruling government, why do we not tell those who seek to sanction us for fighting for our land that it was Nelson Mandela's dream that South Africa should be equal? Why do we not remind the international community that loves Nelson Mandela so much that Nelson Mandela did not stand for reconciliation only, but he believed that the land and the wealth of South Africa must be shared. And for this, he started an armed struggle because the white apartheid regime did not listen to a peaceful means. Why does this government not tell the USA that when white racists refused equality, Nelson Mandela said they must just be confronted with arms, and that today we are better because we are confronting racists with legislation and the constitution to expropriate land without compensation. The approach of this government, which seeks to plead with imperialism, is cowardice, and we must never allow it. The USA is not interested in diplomacy. The USA is interested in dominance over us by any means necessary. And we must stand up and fight for ourselves because we represent a historical mission. And that mission is the return of the land. Whether Donald Trump's like it or not, we are going to fight for the return of the land in South Africa. Comrades, we gathered here at Dlomo Dam while our nation faces global pressure to project the rights of white minority, while at the same time African people have never known peace and have never known justice. Not a single army general, policeman, or a station commander was ever prosecuted for the Sharpeville massacre. Not a single soldier, not a single police officer was ever arrested or prosecuted for the murder of kids during June 16 uprising. Yet today, we are told the whole of South Africa must be sanctioned because white people are victims of crime like the rest of us. And because we dare stand in solidarity with the people of Palestine and demand the return of the land which belongs to us. Comrades, it is for the first time in our history as democratic nation that South Africa faces the threat of sanction and economic isolation. And that is because the white minority which control the land and the wealth fears equality. Where was the USA when our mothers were fed to pigs in Limpopo by white farmers? Where was the USA with its sanctions when Eugene Terreblanche was raping young boys on his farm before they resisted and killed the racists because no one will act against him? Where were the sanctions of America when a child was shot by a farmer in the Northern Cape for picking a flower on his farm, and we were told that this child was mistaken for a monkey? Where was the international community when the racists at the University of Free State fed our mothers who were domestic workers human waste? Why were our people who were stuffed into a coffin alive in Mpumalanga not offered refugee status in America? Comrades, what does the USA have to say about the murderers of Flag Plus who roam our society today freely and have never accounted for their crimes? Why is the International Criminal Court to prosecute Voter Basson, Dr. Death, who used chemical warfare and medicine to poison and kill anti-apartheid activists? Voter Basson, who committed these human rights violations, is sitting comfortably here in South Africa while victims of his biological warfare, which violated human rights, suffered the consequences and never saw justice. How can we be expected to reconcile with those who have never acknowledged these crimes and were never held accountable for them? How can we be asked to share our land, our resources, and our future with those who still believe that Orania and Volksstad are their birthright in Africa, while the mass graves of our people are ignored? These are the people who have never appreciated with how they came to enjoy their wealth and power. People who still see us as servants, as laborers, as conquered people. People who did not even consider themselves Africans until it became convenient to do so, to claim indigenous to our land after calling themselves Europeans for centuries. Before 1994, our compatriots did not consider themselves as Africans and knew that they were Europeans who had acquired land through the theft and conquest. Today, we are told that we are violating property rights when we demand our land from people who called themselves Europeans just 30 years ago. Those who stole our land must face the truth that they acquired land through theft and genocide. Let them explain to us how they can still feel entitled to our land when they've never acknowledged the rivers of blood that were spilled to build their world. Let the ANC explain how they can claim to represent black people while aligning themselves with our former oppressor, selling out the legacy of our martyrs for parliamentary seats and empty slogans of reconciliation with those who still believe they are superior to us. We refuse to forget. Our ancestors are watching. The waters of this Domo Dam remember the blood that fell on this day and will ensure that their sacrifices are never erased. We demand prosecution of apartheid crimes, and that must be where the USA begins its investigation of genocide and violations of human rights. All those Boers who killed our people during apartheid must be arrested. All the army generals of the apartheid army must be arrested. All the apartheid policemen who came here in Sharpeville and killed our people, they must still be prosecuted. Kaspedi bar molato a ubole re a ba nyaka till today. Comrades, the apartheid regime in South Africa did not fall on its own. It was forced to its knee by the unbreakable resistance of the people and the relentless pressure of the international community. Nations across the world took a stand against racist state by imposing trade sanctions, diplomatic isolation, and sporting boycotts that crippled the apartheid economy and exposed its brutality to the world. It was a pan-African struggle supported by our fellow African nations who understood that the oppression of one African nation was an attack on the entire continent. This nation sacrificed their own security, stability, and resources to assist in the fight for our liberation. Zambia, under the leadership of Kenneth Kaunda, became a frontline state for the liberation movements, providing a safe haven for exiled ANC and PAC members. The country allowed the ANC to establish its headquarters in Lusaka, offering logistical and financial support despite constant threats and military attacks from the apartheid regime. Zimbabwe, following its independence in 1980, played a crucial role in supporting South African liberation fighters, offering training camps, military aid, and political backing in international forums. Mozambique, under Samora Machel, gave direct military support to the ANC armed wing Umkhonto weSizwe and allowed freedom fighters to use Mozambican territory for training and strategic operations. Mozambique suffered attacks from the South African Defense Force as a result, yet it never stopped its commitment to the anti-apartheid struggle. Tanzania, under Julius Nyerere, provided training facilities, refugee, and ideological guidance to the liberation movements. Nyerere was a strong advocate of African unity and used his influence to mobilize support for sanctions against apartheid. Angola, with the support of Cuba, offered military training camps and armed resistance against South African Defense Force. Cuba, led by Commandant Fidel Castro, sent thousands of troops to Angola to fight against the South African military, weaken the apartheid state hold on the regime. This fight was fought successfully to a point where the regime retreated in Kutu-Konaval. Nigeria imposed an oil embargo on apartheid South Africa and used its diplomatic influence to push for global sanctions. Successive Nigerian governments provided scholarships for South African students and financial assistance to liberation movements. Several countries took decisive action by cutting off trade with apartheid South Africa, refusing to engage economically with a regime that oppressed and murdered black people. The United Nations first called for an arms embargo in 1963, but it was only in 1977 that it became mandatory. As pressure mounted, individual nations took their own bold steps. Sweden, Norway, and Denmark were amongst the first to completely halt trade and investment with South Africa, setting a moral standard for the rest of the world. India was the first country to cut diplomatic ties with South Africa in 1946 and consistently pushed for international isolation of the apartheid state. Canada, Australia, and New Zealand imposed sanctions on trade, investment, and travel against South African officials and businesses in the 80s. The European Economic Community, now EU, imposed a ban on new investment in 1986 and restricted trade with South Africa. These economic restrictions hit the apartheid government where it hurt the most, causing severe damage to industries and forcing white business owners to reckon with the reality that apartheid is unsustainable. One of the most powerful tools used against apartheid South Africa was its expulsion from the global sporting community. For a nation that took pride in its sports, this was a devastating blow to its international image. South Africa was banned in soccer, in rugby, and in cricket, and teams of nations opposed to apartheid, and their athletes refused to compete with teams representing apartheid South Africa. These international sanctions, along the armed resistance and internal uprising led by the liberation movements, created unbearable pressure that apartheid could not withstand. It is for this reason, comrades, that we are so adamant on our position to support the people of Palestine and call for boycott and sanction against the apartheid Israeli state, which is committing genocide. It is because our nation itself is a product of international solidarity. The question we must ask is, where was Israel and USA, which seek to call us a nation that commits human rights violation today, when the world turned its back on apartheid South Africa? We must never forget those who resisted sanctions, those who continue to trade with and arm the apartheid regime. The United States, the United Kingdom under Margaret Thatcher, and Israel were amongst the worst offenders actively supporting the apartheid regime. Let us never forget that the USA classified our freedom fighters as terrorists. The US did not just support apartheid with words, it armed and funded the regime. During the Cold War, America saw the racist apartheid government as a strategic ally against communism, choosing to back white supremacy over justice. The CIA assisted in the capture of Nelson Mandela in 1962, handing him over to the apartheid regime. Washington ensured that South Africa's economy remained functional, allowing companies like General Motors, IBM, and Coca-Cola to continue business while black South Africans suffered under the boot of operation. Comrades, the USA sold weapons to the apartheid government, helped them develop nuclear technology, and even gave intelligence to the South African military, which it used to target anti-apartheid activists. The American government's policy mirrored its own history of racial oppression. Just as the USA armed the South African apartheid regime, they now fund Israel's genocide against Palestine, ensuring that another racist settler colonial state can continue its domination. Comrades, we must never succumb to pressure of America. America has never helped us with anything, even during apartheid. They cannot threaten us now with sanctions. Everywhere else America goes, you must know they never go to help those people. They go to destabilize those countries. They did the same thing in Libya. They did the same thing in Iraq. They did the same thing in Afghanistan. Now they want to come to South Africa and destabilize it. We must unite against American imperialism and colonialism. We must not be intimidated by Elon Musk and everybody who stands with him. All those who are offered an opportunity to go to America because there is a genocide against them in South Africa, you are free to go. The borders are opened for racists to leave South Africa. We have no home for racists in South Africa. Our friends will never be United Kingdom. Our friends will never be France. Our friends will never be USA. They were never there for us during difficult time. Palestine was there for us during our difficult time. Palestine associated with us during difficult time. We will always support the people of China, the people of Russia, the people of Venezuela, the people of Haiti, and all the progressives in Cuba who stood with us. Today, even when we are confronted with serious sanctions, we are not scared because we know we are direct beneficiaries of international solidarity. I call on you to continue paying solidarity with the people of Palestine. It doesn't matter what Trump will do to us. We will die next to the Palestinian people. We will be buried next to the graves of the Palestinians. Comrades, we support Russia because Russia equipped us, Russia trained us, gave us education, gave us money to fight with the apartheid government. We will never stand with Ukraine. And we don't want Zelensky to visit South Africa because he's a puppet of the Western forces. Comrades, our people are being killed in Sudan. Life is being lost. No one is saying anything because it's an African life. We must fight and always continue to raise the plight of the children and women of Sudan. We must no longer allow a situation where blacks kill other black people because they want riches of that country. Africans must unite everywhere and do not find it easy to kill one another during these difficult times. Comrades, we have seen the killings in Mozambique, and they should know, the people of Frelimo in Mozambique, that if there is instability in Mozambique, it's going to affect South Africa. That's why we will not allow that there is instability in Mozambique. We want peace in Mozambique. We want free and fair elections in Mozambique. We want free and fair elections in Zimbabwe. We call on Zimbabweans to stop being cowards and confront Mnangagwa's government and go and reclaim their own country. They cannot continue to stay in South Africa as if they are enjoying life here. You will never enjoy life in somebody else's country. You can only enjoy life if you go home and remove ZANU-PF from power and arrest those who are stealing the gold of Zimbabwe. Comrades, here at home, the youth of South Africa have no reason, none whatsoever, to support the GNU. The GNU is a government of cowards who want to perpetuate the poverty of black people. Employment is too high in South Africa to a level of 47%. Let me not talk about Eastern Cape because the level of unemployment and poverty is beyond 50%, meaning half the population of the Eastern Cape is unemployed, meaning half the population of the Eastern Cape is suffering from poverty and hunger. Comrades, the mines are still owned by the whites. Construction companies are owned by the whites. Trade is being done amongst white people. Agriculture, our land, is still in the hands of the whites. That's why you don't have jobs. They will never create jobs for you because they want you to remain inferior. Only the EFF will create jobs for the youth of South Africa. Only the EFF will reindustrialize the whole of South Africa. All these factories that are closed at Vaal will be opened under the EFF because it is the only organization with a clear focus. Comrades, we need state-led industrialization and mass job creation. We must make sure that there is jobs in each and every house. There shouldn't be a house in South Africa where there is no single person who works. Comrades, because of this unemployment, our people have now gone to crime. Our people are now smoking nyaope. Our people are raping our children. We are unable to report them because we are scared they withhold the resources against us. Most of these people who rape our children and rape women are people who are known to us and they are breadwinners. That's why at times we don't report them.
Amandla! Viva EFF! Viva! Tata EFF! Tata! Aiule EFF! Aiule! Uile mmusho wa maokgodu Gauteng! Uile! Auwe mmusho wa maokgodu! Auwe! Auwe mmusho wa dirata marukwana! Auwe! Amandla! Amandla! Thank you very much, Realabua, Deputy President Godrich Gadi, Relabue, our Secretary General, the Deputy Secretary General, our National Chairperson, our Treasurer General, Relabue, the Provincial Command Team, the Regional Command Team, Relabue, the deployees and all CCT members who are here. Redumedise bonkgono ka mo tenteng le bo ramogolo ka moka. Re re a leboga mogolo a tlhokege baneng. You are coming here, it's a blessing. Re leboge moruti and all our traditional leaders. Re leboge all of you, the ground forces of the EFF. This EFF is still alive today because you kept it alive. And therefore, we are always happy to be amongst you because you are on the ground fighting for the poor of the poorest. Relevant members of the media who are here and the people of South Africa, the people of the continent and the diaspora. Comrades, because EFF is international, we are going to spend most of our time today speaking in the colonial language, English, because we must communicate even to the outside world. Today, we gathered here in the historic township of Sharpeville, a place that carries the blood of our ancestors, the pain of our past, and the resilience of our struggle. We do not come here to commemorate a so-called Human Rights Day, but to remember and honor the sacrifice of those who fell on the 21st March 1960 at the hands of murderous apartheid regime. We call it Sharpeville Massacre Day because it is a day of struggle and sacrifice, and not a day where opportunists and racists should be allowed to hijack this day to claim that it represents their human rights which has been violated. We call it Sharpeville Massacre Day because to call it anything else is to undermine the memory of those who gave their lives in the struggle against white domination, and it will allow history to be distorted. It was on this day that thousands of black South Africans took to the streets in defiance of the oppressive past laws imposed by the apartheid government. These laws were not just pieces of paper. They were chains that bound our people to poverty, oppression, and the state-sanctioned violence. Led by the PAC, our people courageously stood against injustice, demanding an end to the past law that restricted their movement in their own land. But instead of being met with dialogue, they were met with bullets. Sharpeville was not just a massacre. It was a declaration of war by the apartheid regime against the black majority. It was a moment that exposed the true brutality of white minority rule to the entire world. The cowardice of the apartheid regime meant that unarmed and peaceful Africans were shot in the back as they tried to flee, their bodies riddled with bullets, their dreams cut short by a government that saw black lives as disposable. The passbook, known as the Dompas,
was the physical embodiment of apartheid brutality and inhumanity. It was a document of oppression designed to control and dehumanize black people in their own land. This small book dictated where a black person could live, where they could work, and even when they could move. It was not just a piece of paper. It was a weapon of humiliation, a daily reminder that in the eyes of the white supremacist state, black people were not human beings, but subject to be controlled, to be policed, restricted, and punished at will. It was the tool that kept our people in township with no running water or electricity, while white suburbs flourished with stolen wealth. Today, white supremacists do not need a compass to undermine our human rights, because even after 30 years of democracy, Africans remain in poverty, living in shacks without water, electricity, or dignity. We are told to move on from the crimes of apartheid, yet the reality of apartheid remains the same, because a white life in this country is worth more than black life. The worth of a white life on South Africa means so much that when there is a death of a white person due to crime that affects us all, it is called a white genocide. Because whenever a white person dies, the whole world must pay attention. Fellow fighters, we must refuse the idea that a black life is so cheap that even our history of sacrifice and resistance can be changed to message, to conscience, to massage the conscience of our oppressors. Our people were massacred by apartheid regime today. The human rights of Africans have not changed ever since those Africans were killed here in Sharpeville in 1960.
Thank you, Africa, Mama Africa.